My review of the Elgato Key Light was not super well accepted. I had a lot of people who were really mad about the price and really mad about how much I was appreciating it for the price, because there are some cheaper edge-lit LED options on the market that are actually decent, but most of them that are like really good for the kind of light that the Elgato Key Light was meant for are very expensive. And there were enough comments about finding an alternative that another light company that makes other lights reached out to me so that I could review it, because there was enough interest in my comment section about the Key Light, which is pretty cool. So today we're reviewing a 3-piece kit of the Dazzne D50 edge-lit LED panels here, which, you know, there's 3 of them. I also have the remote for it, which is its own separate thing, but I'm reviewing it as part of the kit. And we'll be comparing it to the old Elgato Key Light as well. Let's get into it. This video is brought to you by Adobe. Their Creative Cloud suite of video production apps are what I use in my day-to-day workflow to produce multiple videos per week and have for years. They've got Adobe Premiere Pro as their timeline video editor, After Effects for motion graphics and other special effects, Audition for audio, Photoshop for graphics, Adobe Media Encoder as a great transcoding rendering suite. There's a lot of them. I have an affiliate link and I have not been boosting it or, promoting it as much as I should. And so we're gonna see how many signups we can get or renewals we can get through my link in the video description for the month of April. Sign up if you haven't already. So this is one of the Dazzne D50 LED video panel lights that I have here. And I hope I'm saying Dazzne right. That's the company name. D50 is the model. It does come in a 2-pack or a 3-pack. I've got a 3-pack set up here, main key light right here. I've got a different color temperature, just kind of fill light going right there. And then this is my 3rd one that I'm using to demonstrate stuff in the review. Now, this thing is priced much more competitively compared to Elgato's Key Light, which costs about $200 for one light. I was originally under the impression during my review that it cost $139 and was right on board with it. And that price is very different than $200. Pretty sweet. And for the value that you get in the box, it's actually a really good bargain, because you get the light panels themselves, you get dedicated power supplies for each of them, as well as the Velcro strips to strap them to your light stand or what have you. They come with this pre-mounted tilt head here, the pan tilt head to adjust the angle and things like that, already included, which it will end up being a negative as well that I'll talk about in a little bit. And they come with the light stands, and these are not the worst light stands in the world. It's still a cheaper, lighter weight light stand. They're not gonna hold a ton of heavy weight, but compared to my really thin, newer light stands that I've been using for years until I got my Aperture Light Dome and had to get a beefy impact light stand that's like the entire size of my room, these are fairly substantial and decent light stands that'll last you a decent amount of time. Like, I was pretty impressed. All of that comes in the package. Now, the remote itself is an extra $26-ish addition to the cost if you want to pick this up. And this will let you manage up to 6 different groups of lights on up to 10 different channels. So you can have group A, group B, group C, group D, group E, group F, but you also have channels 1 through 10 that the lights can be on. However, and then this lets you change color temperature, brightness, and what group the remote itself is on, but you can't power on the lights with this. Like, if I turn the remote off here, the lights stay on. You can't control the actual turn-on-ness of the lights. Turn-on-ness. So that was pretty disappointing. And then mine seems to have like a bad battery or something, because the screen keeps flickering, like the backlight for it. The normal screen works fine, but the backlight part of the screen keeps flickering, and it keeps reading that it has no battery sometimes, even, and it still works, but something's a little funky with it. But the lights themselves can actually control each other. So if you set them to the same channel, then whatever you change on one light will change it for all of the lights that are on that channel and group. So then you can have like this light by itself, but these 2 lights on the same settings, and then just control one light to change it, so they can kind of control each other without needing the remote, which is pretty cool. And again, it's optional. Now, compared to the Elgato Key Light, since that seems to kind of be the theme of this review, you get no external control for the Key Light that it doesn't involve a computer or phone of some sort. They do finally have an Android app for it, and there's the computer apps and the Stream Deck buttons and things like that. But on the Key Light, There is no hardware controls, there's no buttons, there's no dials, there's nothing whatsoever, and you have no remote. So you need to be integrated into their software on the computer side and to have it connected to your wireless network or to use the mobile phone app, which mobile phone app is probably good enough for most people in this day and age, but the lack of hardware controls and the lack of battery plates on the Key Light is a big disappointment for me. Now the light itself, again, is an edge lit panel here. It's a nice big square. It comes with this pan tilt head thing on it, like I mentioned before. A big downside for me, which I guess I'll already bring it back to the Elgato Key Light, there is no 1/4-20 thread taps on this thing at all. Whereas the Elgato Key Light has them on all 4 sides, so you can mount it vertically, you can mount it on the bottom, you can hang it from the top, you know, whatever. This has none. You only have this mount. And I got into a little bit of trouble because this little mount is only screwed in here with 4 Phillips head screws. So I sat there and took it apart thinking that there might be a 1/4-20 thread tap under this, which would have been kind of cool. And there wasn't. And then the nuts that hold those screws into place fell off into the chassis of the light. I wound up having to take the whole light apart, which then I discovered that it's very user serviceable. It was super easy to take apart, super easy to fit back together. Everything is super easy to access and control, which I haven't taken apart the Elgato Key Light, so I can't say, you know, whether or not it is, but that was definitely a point in my book for this light, even though it's a negative point for not having the 1/4-20 tap on it. But I also learned, you know, found an easier way to illustrate how these lights actually work. I described them as edge lit because that's how they work. But if you actually see the insides, it makes a lot more sense. All right, I wanted to provide this little ad in here to just kind of show how these light panels actually work, since I had to take it apart. You've got the power supply, and this is a piece of adhesive, just kind of non-conductive material that sits between the power supply and this metal shield here. And then this is literally just a metal frame. You can actually make these out of cake tins. There's a couple channels that have made DIY, you know, edge lit LEDs that I can link in the description, but it's just a piece of aluminum or something with LED strips mounted along the edges pointing inward. So that sits in here. And then inside of this is gonna be rough to put back together one-handed, but inside of that metal tin, you have this, it's literally like a white piece of PVC or paper or something that goes inside. It just kind of sits in there. And all of the lights, you know, basic photography principles in terms of bounce lighting, all of the lights shine in on this and bounce outward because this is a, you know, light reflecting surface. And then you have this piece of, this is just like acrylic or something with these little hole notches in there to make it kind of almost frosted and diffused, although you can clearly see my hand through there. And it's the same thickness as the LEDs. And so the LEDs shine through this onto the paper and reflect outward, and these little dots help it be directional, and then the frame covers up the hot spots of the individual LEDs, and you have nice, soft, diffused light that looks like it's coming from this plastic itself, but are actually shining through at it. It's a super simple concept, clearly getting cheaper and cheaper to make, but it's a very effective one for soft lighting from a single source. By not having the 1/4-20 thread taps, this does make it very difficult to mount anywhere else where you're not using a standard light stand. For example, my actual live streaming setup at my main desktop, I'm using the Elgato Key Light because I have the little edge of my desk there, and their clamping arm is really handy for desk setups and is really cool, and I'm able to clamp that on the side of my desk where there's a bunch of other stuff and point it down at me, and I'm not able to even reuse that stand for this light due to that limitation. And that means that I'm probably not gonna be able to swap this light out for it or anything because I can't fit a whole light stand next to the desk there or anything like that. For a lot of people looking to switch from setups where they already have light stands in place, this is going to be smaller and take up less space and just fit into their setup in general, but that's still important to note for some people. As far as brightness goes, they measured the brightness of the light at 4,800 lux at 1/2 meter, and then like, I have to reference the script here, 1,300 lux at 1 meter. So that's fairly bright. And then color temperature wise, it has a range of 3,000 Kelvin to 5,800 Kelvin. Kind of a weird range in my opinion. I would have loved to see it bump up to 6,000 Kelvin to try to match my main Aperture C120D. However, this will match at 5,600 Kelvin, you know, have the same color temperature as the Godox SL60W that I recently reviewed. And you can control the brightness increments, or the brightness in increments of 1%. So you can go all the way down to 1% and then all the way up. And then the color temperature is controlled in increments of 100 Kelvin. So no 50s, but you do get 100 jumps. As far as color accuracy goes, I'm not the best person to be a judge of this in the first place. I don't have the measuring tools for it, and I don't know 100% what to look for, and I haven't even looked at the footage yet, but I have recorded a whole bunch of tests here with a little pre-made scene and a color chart comparing this at a couple different color temperatures to the Elgato Key Light as the main point of comparison, and to my Aperture C120D and the Godox SL60W. So you can see for yourself, these are only set based on the color temperature of the lights in camera. They're not adjusted for anything in post, so you can see how they relate to one another. However, it is being advertised as having over 96% CRI, so that's very impressive for the price if that's the case. But again, I can't verify that for you. The actual light meters to measure that kind of thing are very expensive. On the back here, you can see the control setup. It has a nice bright LCD readout of the color temperature, the channel, the group, the brightness level, and that's also present on the remote. And it lights up. I don't have batteries in. Then you have 2 battery sleds for Sony NPF style batteries. So that is a very common set, though I have enough accessories at this point that use that style battery, like my camera monitor that I'm using right here, all my different light sets, things like that, that I'm actually realizing I need a lot more of these batteries. But it does take 2, it does require 2 to power from batteries, as it needs like 4 amps or something, which requires both batteries to pull at one time. However, I did find that the battery life from it was quite decent. I ran around with one of these for a few days without needing, doing small shoots here and there. I've used this light to light a few of my videos now that you've seen, and I've actually gotten really good results of it, especially as a quick setup light compared to my Aperture light. I've gotten decent results and nobody's complained so far. And so that's turned out pretty well. And it took me quite a long time to need to recharge the first set of batteries that I put in here, which was pretty cool. And then you have manual buttons to change the group and the channel, and then you have a button to do something with the remote. I think that's to activate remote control mode to control the other lights. Not 100% certain on that off the top of my head. And then it has a button to just increase the brightness in 25% intervals. If you don't want to have to sit here and scroll the wheel, you can just kick it up to 25, 50, 75, 100, back down. So that's pretty cool. And then you have the control wheel. This controls brightness by default, and then you tap the button, it controls color temperature, or if you tap group or channel, it will change what group or channel you are in. And then you have a dedicated dual wave power button, one for the DC power that you can plug into it, which is a 15-volt power supply, by the way. Not a super standard one for light kits, but they're much bigger lights and they kind of need it. And then the side for the battery, of course. Now the Elgato Key Light has some metal-ish feeling elements to its build quality, which makes it feel like it would last, drops or something a lot easier, assuming you don't shatter the front diffusion. Whereas this is completely plastic, and I have no doubts that a decent drop would just shatter this thing completely, which is unfortunate because even all the screw bits that mount everything together are all plastic, so those would crack and break as well. But overall, build quality is not that bad, and I'm quite impressed, like I said, with the results I get from it, and the fact that you can get so many for so cheap makes it super versatile for setting up and stream setups. If you need 2-point lighting for your live stream, or you need a light on you and a light on your green screen, or 2 lights on your green screen, you have a whole lot of options. Or in my case, I've been building out multiple live streaming setups. I've needed to, use multiple different lights, and I couldn't afford to spend $200 per light on the Elgato Key Light. Yeah. So I'm glad I got these set up so I can start showing you guys the upcoming live stream setups. This is one thing I jumped straight into using these lights for my video production, in shooting in my retro room and things like that, where I needed quick extra lights. And so that meant that I was less likely to start reviewing this thing because I was already putting it to use and didn't want to take time away from it. So I had to make myself jump back in here and make sure I reviewed these, because I am enjoying them quite a bit. And like I said, priced competitively, this is exactly what you guys have been asking for in the comment section of my Elgato Key Light review. Yeah, I can't really think of anything else to add to this. They're very impressive lights for the price. I am super stoked at how cheap lighting is getting. I realize if you're just getting into YouTube, content creation, live streaming, things like that, it can seem daunting to spend $170 on some lights, especially when you can get some cheap soft boxes for $40, and that's a great starting point if you genuinely can't afford anything better. But this is what you're going to end up with more in the long run anyway, as someone who started with those cheaper soft boxes. The light stands are super cheap and break really easy and become incredibly frustrating to use. Same with the soft boxes, and then the actual CFL bulbs that you have to use for those cheaper socket-based, lights are incredibly hot. And it's only April, and it's already getting hot enough. Like I just showered so I can make this video, and I am already sweating again. It is going to be very difficult to start shooting video without the AC running, because that would ruin my audio. I'm grateful for LEDs not adding that much heat to my recording environment. So that's it for me. Product affiliate links, at least to Amazon, will be in the description below. As always, highly recommend these lights. Very competitive alternative to the Elgato Key Light if you don't need the Stream Deck integration and things like that, most of which I find to be a little bit silly. Like, it's cool to have that control. Sacrificing functional usability on the back for that control doesn't make a whole lot of sense to me. And I honestly don't think most people buying the light would be sitting there and hitting a button to change the color temperature of their light that often. It is handy for the one that I use to, hit the button to turn it on real quick, but Hope you enjoyed this video. Hope you found it helpful. What are your favorite lights to use for video, or what kind would you like to start using if you had the budget? Let me know in the comment section down below. I do have a lot of more streamer-centric content coming in the future. Just needed to get this kind of stuff out of the way. Hope you enjoyed. I already said that. Go check out our sponsor, Adobe, I can use my affiliate link to sign up. Let's see how many signups we can get in April here. Subscribe. Check us out on Discord, discord.com or eposvox.com/Discord. I'm gonna stop talking. See you later.